It's that time of year again, the time where we say goodbye to self-restraint and hello to all those sweet treats we have talked ourselves out of the rest of the year. That's right, today we are talking about that most sacred of Christmas traditions, baking! And hey, if you liked today's episode, remember to give us a like or hit that subscribe button for more hot and ready fact bites. Christmas has always been a time of feasting and celebration, even back in the 5th century when it officially became a Christian holiday. By the Middle Ages, the Christmas traditions that we know today were well on their way, complete with carols, big meals, and even cookies. Christmas was a time to indulge, and dessert was no exception. Ingredients like butter, spices, dried fruit, and especially sugar were expensive, so your average citizen was unlikely to make any of these treats year-round. But since Christmas was a special time of celebration, it was a good excuse to use all those costly items you wouldn't normally buy. Nothing but the best at Christmas. Now we carry on this tradition by making a lot, and I mean a lot, of goodies. But if you, like me, are tired of an endless parade of sugar cookies, you might go searching for something a little out of the box. So let's take a look at one of my favorite Christmas treats, St. Lucia Buns, and stick around after the recipe for a list of other Christmas goodies that are sure to impress at your next get-together. St. Lucia buns, or lussekatter, are a traditional sweet bun served on St. Lucy's Day in Sweden, December 13th. These buns are soft, chewy, and thanks to a pinch of saffron, surprisingly sophisticated. Start by infusing milk with your saffron. Mix both ingredients into a pot on the stove, then remove it once it's heated through. We're not looking to cook the milk here, we're really only heating it so that the flavors of the saffron can soak through the milk. Pro tip, saffron is the most expensive spice in the world and has a pretty powerful flavor, so you don't need to go overboard. Next, mix up your dry ingredients. So our dry ingredients include flour, sugar, yeast, and salt. I'm using instant yeast because that's what the recipe called for, but you can also use dry active yeast if you've got time to let it prove. I'm gonna mix that together. So why do we mix dry ingredients in a separate bowl? That's because you don't want clumps of dry ingredient in your baked good. I don't think anybody would mind biting into a clump of sugar, but raw flour and baking soda, not so good. Now that our milk has cooled off a little bit, we're gonna pour it into our stand mixer and add some sour cream. Now, a lot of traditional recipes will call for quark, which, if you're in America, you can probably find in a local grocery store, but let's be honest, it's December, nobody's got time to look for quark. Next, we're gonna put the paddle in the stand mixer and mix the sour cream and the saffron milk together. Add your dry ingredients to your liquids a little at a time. There are a number of reasons to do this, but the main one is so that you don't end up with a flour explosion in your stand mixer. And yes, we recommend using a stand mixer rather than mix by hand. I am not a grandmother, and I always bake these last minute since I definitely forgot I needed to bring something to the office party. Or my friend's cookie swap, or, Christmas dinner. When your dough starts to come together, you can switch from a paddle to a dough hook, because you're fancy like that. Use the dough hook to knead the dough for about 7 minutes, or until the dough starts to pull away from the sides of the bowl. After a few more minutes of mixing, start adding your butter. Then continue adding butter. Remember how I said Christmas was a time to indulge? Well, you won't forget come January. Listen, we're not just adding butter because it's Christmas. Butter contributes a lot during the baking process. First, it helps to uniformly distribute all the flavors of your baked good. We're adding it here a tablespoon at a time so that it fully incorporates into the entire dough. Butter also impacts texture a lot. In the case of these buns, it interrupts the formation of gluten, leaving a soft, smooth texture. It will also keep your baked good from going stale too quickly, meaning that these buns have a pretty good shelf life, if they last that long. So now that the butter is fully incorporated, we're gonna turn the dough into a greased bowl and let it rise. So I have my bowl right here. There we go. And we are gonna cover it with a towel. And we're just gonna let it sit for about 40 minutes or so until it's doubled in size. Now's a great time to have a cup of coffee, or a glass of wine, or take a nap because it's December and we're all very tired. Now's also a good time to freeze the dough and save it for later. When the dough has risen, break off pieces to shape into buns. If you're like me and you're a little bit extra, you'll use a kitchen scale to make sure that each piece is exactly the same size, or close to it. In fact, here's another tip. Baking is chemistry. Buy yourself a kitchen scale and find recipes that use weight instead of volumetric measurements. Weight is a more precise measure than volume, so you'll end up with better, more consistent results every time. Now comes my favorite part, rolling. This is the only dough that has never stuck to my hands. Thanks, butter. It's basically like playing with a softer, more edible version of Play-Doh. Listen, I'm not a professional here. Make a snake, then roll it flat and curl up the ends towards the middle. Let those buns rise again about 30 minutes, then paint them with an egg wash for the hashtag aesthetic. There's no other reason. Quick tip for egg washes, whisk them to break up the yolk and the white, then let them sit for a bit. This will make for a looser wash that brushes on thinner. Now lussekatter in Swedish means lussekats, and that refers to this specific shape. It kind of looks like a little cat all curled up, except then they tell you to put currants on either end, and is it supposed to be a face now? I mean, apparently lussekatter can also translate as Lucifer's cat, so sure, Sweden? Bake until they're evenly browned and enjoy. And here we have the finished product. Oh, they're soft, they're chewy, and thanks to that saffron, just a little bit floral. Which, hey, if that's not your jam, that's totally fine. Mix it up with some vanilla or cardamom. They won't have this bright yellow color, but they'll be just as delicious. So now while I eat too many of these to count, here are some other out-of-the-box Christmas treats for your next get-together. For an old-school Christmas treat, I like a mince pie. Full of dried fruits and nuts, these traditional English treats fit in your hand, and you can add an extra depth of flavor from your favorite liquor. A lot of recipes you might find will call for suet, which is animal lard and not a staple in America, so vegetable shortening will work just fine. Others might call for actual meat, which, I skip it. Christmas is the only time that anyone thinks of chestnuts, so why not try some French marron glacé, or candied chestnuts? I apologize to the entire country of France for my terrible French. Roast chestnuts smell great, but can sometimes have a weird gritty texture that's not for everyone. Candied chestnuts have been soaked in sugar for 2 weeks and are chewy like a candy bar, which is definitely for me. And as long as we're in Europe, skip on over to Portugal for some pastéis de nata, a flaky pie filled with eggy custard. Sprinkled with cinnamon and sometimes powdered sugar, these pastries were invented by monks to support their monasteries and are now a national pastry. Make a lot or else they won't make it to your party. Moving east, why not try kolachki or krishchiki? These sweets hail from Eastern Europe and are staples at my family's Polish Christmas dinners. Kolaczki, or cream cheese cookies, are made from a cream cheese dough folded over a filling. We use apricot jam or poppy seed filling in ours. Not too sweet, but tangy from the cream cheese and flaky when you bite into it. Krzyziki, on the other hand, is very sweet because it's just fried dough covered in powdered sugar. Pretty straightforward though. So that's what I've got for you today. Thanks for watching, and hey, leave us a comment with some of your favorite Christmas treats. And if you like what you saw here today, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.